Good question.
It's getting ready to go here, John.
It says, I can see it says now streaming. Yep.
So something's going right. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
Well, we are now live, so it's actually working in that sense. There's Hayden, so I'll admit Hayden. I got Mary's here. I got
Hi,
the middle.
Hayden. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Hayden.
Hello.
And I got Tim. So Jody was working on some things at her house, I know.
And Darcy, will you want to say something tonight?
Sure.
Okay, good.
That's all right.
So Hayden
Great.
and Darcy are both going to kind of join in. Looks like Gary and Pam are joining now, so I don't know how that will all work. What will be interesting tonight is we're going to have a board meeting, quite frankly, in the middle of a storm, I think, unfortunately.
Again, we did that for the Career Center
Huh?
Thursday.
You say you don't? Yeah, here we are. It's live.
That's on YouTube Live.
Yep. All right, so there's Pam. The only board member we don't have yet is Jody, so she's working at it. Looks like Jamie Holland's on board. Are you there, Jamie?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, welcome aboard. Okay, looks like I've got an admin jumping on. Hi, Jody. Can you hear us, Jody?
I can, thank you.
All right, great. All right, I think, where's my man Gary? There's Gary. Okay, so we have Gary, we have 5 board members. I've got Kathy, I've got Hayden, I've got Jamie kind of on speaker, and I've got Darcy here. So other than maybe Grant Pepler, and we had nobody called in today to join in public participation, so we won't have that tonight, even though we provided that opportunity for everybody. So I guess with that being said, it is about 6 o'clock there, Dr. Bennett. So if you
Okay.
want to go ahead and get started, we will.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the pledge.
All right.
Put that up. We'll say the pledge together. I pledge allegiance
To
to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and
justice for all.
justice for all. Thank you.
Boy, we would have been horrible as one of those singing groups all trying to do that together.
And would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, we're all here. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our last virtual meeting of April 20th.
So moved,
So
Mayor
moved.
Regola-Dye.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Steve.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thompson. And were there any questions or corrections?
No.
Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Comments of board members, I'd like to welcome everyone to our second virtual meeting. The first one worked pretty well, so we'll hope for the best for this one as well. And I'd like to begin by congratulating our graduates. That's coming up very soon, and I want to congratulate them not only on graduating, but also all of the awards and scholarships that they are receiving from Kiwanis, from the Community Foundation, and from the Academic Booster Club and other scholarships. So congratulations to all of our graduates. I'd also like to thank our teachers and our staff and our students and administrators for hanging in there with us. We've done lots of new things the last couple months, and we appreciate your patience. We appreciate your resilience, and parents for working with us as well at home. So thanks to everyone for making this work. And I'd also heard that there was a church that drove by each of our schools and prayed for the health and safety of our students and our staff. And I just like to thank them for doing that, and to ask everybody else to continue to pray for each other, that we will all stay healthy and be safe. And I just want to thank again our employees for going the extra mile. I know you hadn't planned on doing this, so thanks for all that you've done to make this work. And Mrs. Getzman, would you like to welcome everyone this evening?
Thank you. I would just reiterate what Dr. Bennett said. I know this has truly taken a village to get through this, and I know you would think, okay, since we're not in our buildings, that our administrative team is not a whole lot on their plate right now, and I know that certainly is far from the truth. And so our administrative team, as they continue to coordinate and communicate, more importantly with our families and our students, that communication is key, and I appreciate that. I would also like to say I have thoroughly enjoyed a lot of the videos that have been put out by our buildings and our building principals and our teachers. Mr. Penman with the buzz at the middle school, that's always a fun thing to listen to. So I greatly appreciate it. I've learned a lot about some of our staff members, and that's a lot of fun as well. The 5th grade virtual camp, while it wasn't ideal and the kids liked the hands-on, being together, hands-on activities and the packages they put together for the kids was amazing. So hats off to the 5th grade team. And just as we enter this time of graduation, I know there's a lot of people that would like to see things done differently. We would like the old normal, but unfortunately we're not there. And I just can't express appreciation to the student and staff. I think you will recognize here soon as you travel out and about in the community, they were out today delivering signs to all the graduates. So all of the class of 2020 now have yard signs that indicate as such. And so that's just a really neat piece that we continue to do that's out of the norm, something that we typically wouldn't do sometimes for our students. And I just think it's exciting that we continue to find ways to recognize our students. So hats off to the administrative. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson. Thank you, Mrs. Getzman.
I'll try to be brief, but I put exclamation points behind everything that you've said. It does really make me proud as I drive through town around the noon hour and I see buses headed off to take food and to feed the kids. Mrs. Getzman, we're all part of history, but you'll definitely be part of history as a school board member and a daughter that's graduating. That's one for the history books, right? So I'm happy for you, and yet I know that there's a lot of things that these graduates would love to experience that other classes have.
Yes.
But, thank you to Mr. Will and the administration for putting together, taking the time to go the extra mile to at least create a recognition of these graduates. And it took a lot of effort, a lot of thought, and I appreciate it. And my best to the graduates and to their parents as they navigate through this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And Mr. Workman.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's another virtual meeting. Here we are, but I don't know that I have a lot to add. Again, I'd like to also congratulate the graduates. I was certainly looking forward to graduation as a first-time board member. I'll still be there. It will be a little different, but I'm glad we were able to make accommodations and still have it. Proud of all the seniors and the work that they've done. Parents, teachers, the administration, all should be commended, especially during this very difficult time. So I'd like to pass along my thank yous as well to them. We're not back to normal yet. Hopefully we're working towards that. And, I know that we say a lot, it's the new normal. I'm not sure what that means anymore, but we'll work through it, and we'll get there sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Ms. Regola-Dye.
Thank you and welcome everyone. I'd just like to compliment the Herculean effort that has been put in by our staff, administration, all of the workers, from the bus drivers to the secretaries to our principals to our staff at central office. And I'd also like to compliment the Herculean effort by our seniors. I know this is very bittersweet. It is for all of us too, but for you especially. And I'd like to thank our community for whom, without you, we wouldn't be able to even do this. And we hope that you will continue to support us. We'll be here for you, and we know you'll be here for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. And Mr. Cedar, would you like to offer your welcome as well?
Sure. I would certainly like to welcome all of our folks here at the board meeting tonight and all of those out there on YouTube Live. We are in our second virtual setting. We continue to get a little bit better and better at this kind of an environment, even though we'd love to meet more in person. May is a pretty special month, and obviously for graduation, that is the thing we cherish the most about May. It is the end of a school year, another school year, and it's also kind of retirement season. And unfortunately, one of the challenges of this remote environment that we live in is we aren't able to celebrate some recognition of retirements. And we're not going to do it virtually tonight. We want to wait until we get a chance to bring these retirees back. But I thought it was important to recognize them just in our accommodation and communication section here. Sue Miller, principal of Twin Oak Elementary, she will be retiring here at the end of the year. She thought maybe she could kind of sneak out with a lot of fanfare. That's just not going to happen. And we're going to make sure we can bring all of these folks back and celebrate the right way. Ray Ellen Nixon is retiring as a first grade teacher at Pleasant Street. Sherry Patterson is retiring as a longtime secretary at the middle school. And Deb Whitmore is retiring as a social worker for the district. We have a number of other resignations along the way, but I really wanted to recognize those folks virtually here, and then we'll get a chance to bring them back at a real board meeting where we can kind of do it the right way. So I just wanted to make sure that I not only welcomed everybody, but also recognize those retirees from Mount Vernon City Schools. So I would also say, before we jump into our board agenda, while we are in YouTube Live, unfortunately, we've had some even cancellations tonight because of the weather. And so it could get a little bit tricky. I hope we don't lose internet wherever we're at. Some of us in more of a dial-up land might find greater challenges, but we'll do our best to keep this board meeting moving on smoothly. We're really lucky tonight to have some reports. And we missed Hayden last month. Hayden is a senior for us, and she's going to give us a student government update. So Hayden, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you, because this is probably my last meeting with you guys. So I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to let me come and speak and report on all of this information. And second, so we've had like lots of online schooling with the high school, and I know there's been like several people who have had different, experiences with it. So some people I know are struggling because that's not really their cup of tea, and other people are pretty on top of it, but it all just depends on, the person. Like me personally, I've struggled with it a little bit, but I've stayed on top of all my work. I just learned better in a classroom with a teacher, but it's all just different times. And I know all of my fellow seniors were just really upset about prom and graduation, but I'm really happy that we got to figure out a way that we could work this hybrid graduation in with everything so we can be able to walk across stage. So I know everyone is really excited about that. So this week, I know that we have the motorcade today was canceled because of the weather. So it'll be tomorrow at 4. And also tomorrow at 7 is the academic boosters scholarship recognition and just recognition. And then on the 21st at 6:30 is the senior awards night. And on the 23rd is graduation. The rain date is 24th. So I know those are some things we have on our calendar, and I know we're really excited about those. So any questions about anything else?
I don't have a question, Hayden. I just want to thank you for the good job you've done all year reporting and giving your personal touch has been really nice too. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we wish
Well,
you the best as
Thank
you
you so
graduate.
much.
Future plans, Hayden, is there any you would share with us tonight that you can kind of give us an
Yeah.
eye into what's going on?
Yeah, I'm planning on going to the University of Dayton in the fall and studying mechanical engineering.
Wow, a Dayton Flyer. Well, good for you.
Thank
for
you.
All right. Well, we'll move on through the agenda. Next up is Darcy Nesbitt is joining us tonight. And so Darcy, you have a report from MVEA.
Yeah, just wanted to say, it's been a rough couple of months, I know, for everybody, students, parents, teachers, administration, but I think finally we've made it through. We're all ready for, I think, a much deserved and needed break. As Mrs. Getzman mentioned, I know some of the high school staff was out delivering signs tonight for our seniors, and it was nice just to see a couple people and a couple kids handing out honors cords and stoles, and it was good to have some face-to-face with some students. Know that in the next couple months, we're going to have lots of discussions and decisions to make about our future, but we're looking forward to working together and coming up with a plan that's best for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. And again, thank you for your faithfulness in coming to all of our meetings. And sometimes you don't say anything, but you're always there. So we appreciate your support in that respect. And thanks for the comments. And I didn't know about the teachers delivering signs to all the seniors. That's really neat. So please let them know how much that's appreciated by the board.
Well, let me just say a special thanks to Darcy as well. Through this whole process, she has always been accessible by phone. We meet, we Zoom. We probably have had a half a dozen conversations over the past, at least over the past month or so, because we all want what's best for our kids and for our community. And her leadership through MVEA has been very noted, and it's well received. So thank you, Darcy.
Thank you.
We have no additions or deletions to the agenda tonight. Under superintendent's report, I have a couple of items for information. The first is really what I'm going to call an end of the year update. And you have a link there, but I'll pull it up here so folks can see it. It's got a variety of different topics on it, things that I just thought I would share with the board. I've asked Scott Will to help me in a little bit of this presentation, but before we jump in there, our first one is going to be, I'll load it up here. Our first one is going to be about graduation. Before I let Scott kind of jump in and share some of this, I too would just like to again emphasize how disappointed we are for all of our seniors that we're not able to have a traditional graduation. We started way back trying our best to come up with all kinds of scenarios that would most closely identify with the traditional ceremony. We even talked to officials about a stadium event. And quite frankly, everyone has really recommended that we all go a virtual kind of a graduation. That wasn't quite good enough. And we kept kind of pushing the envelope. And with the administration at the high school, Scott Wills leading in that, we came up with this hybrid scenario. We actually came up with 4 scenarios, narrowed it down to 2 I know Hayden and her kind of executive team or class officers have been involved in those discussions. There was even a survey that was put out, and it's not surprising that the one that was chosen was the one that would be most like a traditional graduation, even though we couldn't have it. And trust me, I've heard from many parents, I've heard from students alike, and I know that everyone wants the best for their kids. And unfortunately, we just can't have a traditional graduation, but we're doing a lot more than I think many, many other districts. And so I think it will have a special place for us. And with that in mind, again, Scott, thanks for all your work. I know you've had lots of people bombard you. Can't we do this? Why don't we do that? We're just trying to do the best we can. And I believe we have a great plan here. So Scott, I'll let you kind of share this slide.
Okay. Thank you for letting me take part of the meeting tonight and share. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my administrative team as well as my staff for all the work that they've done over the course of the last couple months, and especially as we head into our senior recognition programs, our academic recognition programs and graduation. I have a great team, and from top to bottom, I've really appreciated everything they're doing. I know our motorcade weather got in the way of that, and so I'm looking forward to tomorrow night, but we did get a jump on delivering signs and honor stoles and NHS cords, and so that was neat. Mr. Ashbrook and myself actually got to go out and deliver some today, so it was neat to get out, and I hope we didn't scare anyone by showing up in their yard, but we really enjoyed that, and it's a great testament to give something else to our seniors because they have lost so much through this year. So, and I appreciate my discussions with Hayden and with our senior leaders in getting some of these plans put in place and their input and feedback. So heading into this week, so graduation, we're going to have a drive-in type format with 2 sessions, and 2 sessions allow us to be able to have commencement on grounds at our football parking lot at the stadium. So we're excited about that. So it's going to be Saturday with a rain date of Sunday. Session A is going to be letters A through last name of letter L. And then session B will be part of names that end with the letter L through letter Z. Each graduate will have 1 vehicle with immediate family there per guidelines from the Department of Health and through our local health department as well. So we have sent guidelines out to our seniors on that. And, regrettably, we can't really have anyone there except those folks that are in those vehicles. And so no one but the graduates will be allowed out of the vehicles during the ceremonies, and we'll have things in place, and we'll have plenty of staff that have volunteered their time on Saturday to help us maintain that. So pre-staging is going to be in the parking lot between the middle school and high school, and then commencement's going to be at the football parking lot. And we'll take a look here at a map here in a second. Session A, so our first session, we're going to open up the parking lot at noon. And so when folks come in at noon, we're going to get them lined up in numerical order. And then our processional is going to begin at 12:50. So at 12:50, we'll begin with our line of senior vehicles going up Yellow Jacket Drive, and then we'll begin to file into the football parking lot for our traditional processional. Then commencement will begin at 1 o'clock, and then session B, we'll do our pre-stage at 2:30 p.m. And then our processional for our second session will begin at 3:20, and commencement will begin at 3:30. Both sessions are going to air live on WNZR, so we're excited that we have that partnership, that we're going to be able to have commencement going live on radios, because I'm anticipating it's probably going to be a little warmer. So I'm sure people will have their air conditioner on and want to stay cool during commencement, as well as we'll live stream off of our website as we have done in years past. So that link will be available on our main website. And as far as commencement communications go, we'll have some reminders that will go out this week via Knox alerts and email. but we have posted updates, videos on the website, sent them out through parent portal, as well as we sent a mailer. And so Mr. Cedar has shared the pre-staging map. So if you take a look at this map, this is the parking lot between the middle school and high school. And as we said, you know, we've had lots of help. Mr. Fry was able to put this map together. And as you can see, we have spots number 1 through 140. And so each one of those spots is for a senior. And so seniors were mailed an orange card with their name and number, and that's their ticket into staging. And so we will get them to come into the parking lot, and we'll have them back in. And then when the procession starts, we're going to start with car number 1, and we'll come up Yellow Jacket Drive. And then as you can see, when they come into the football parking lot, then we will have them lined up by their number into rows. And so the first island will be numbers 1 through 20, second island 21 through 40, and then so on, going all the way through number 140 for that first session. So as we do many of the normal pieces of commencement, when we get to the roll call and to the introduction of students to get their diploma, we'll get 10 students out at a time. And so the students will exit their cars. We'll have 10 cones set up to the right of the stage as you're sitting in your car looking. And then we'll be able to announce those seniors. They'll walk across the stage to get their diploma, and they'll exit the left side of the stage. And as you can see with Mr. Cedar's arrow, they're going to go down. Any awards that they have not received yet, they're going to pick up at the awards table. And then they will walk down to the cone associated with you know, the first student, second student, third student. So for example, Hayden is going to be number 1. And so Hayden will go across the stage, receive her diploma. And when she goes down, after she gets her awards at the awards table, she'll go to the 1 slot. And then that's where she will be picked up after she receives her diploma. And then parents will be able to exit graduation. And so every 20 students, we will then ask the cars to move 1 island up. And so every parent will have a chance to have a front row seat to see their child receive their diploma on the stage, which will be different from a normal commencement, because usually it's where you come and where you can get seats to where you are. So we're excited. Mr. Siebel is going to provide photography, and so all of our seniors will be able to have their pictures taken walking across the stage, and then those pictures will be available. And then what we'll do afterwards is we're going to piece the first and second sessions together, and then be able to have one single session that we'll be able to stream at a later date with the entire class present in that video. So we're very excited about this. It's truly, I'm glad that we're able to do this. I know, as Mr. Cedar had said, there's a lot of folks that are going the virtual route, and that just was not good enough for us. And we wanted to do as much as we could to honor the senior class. And so I really feel that we have a nice commencement planned, and my hope is that we can just make Saturday as special as we can for the class of 2020.
Scott, you've done a great job putting this together. And if people want to see an actual drive-by presentation, Mr. Well has put on the district website. He was in his vehicle, actually drove the entire process from pre-staging to the procession to actually going in and getting in line. So really some really good instructions are listed there as well. Scott, are graduates able to, if they choose to, are they able to get back in here into a row to kind of watch the end of their session?
They could. The thing that we'll have to do is just make sure that as we move the islands up, that they can do that. So if a graduate would want to stay for that entire first session, that would be welcomed.
So once this whole aisle moved up, someone could turn around and just park here, listen and watch, and they could proceed as the whole line proceeds. You know, obviously one of the disadvantages of being last in the alphabet is you're probably in the back row, and we certainly would love for some people to stick around. I know we'll be watching it live on our Boxcast. That will be on the district's website, and you can listen to it live. Maybe that's a different option there. So appreciate all the efforts and the work that have gone into this, Scott. And while it's not ideal, I just think it's the next best thing that I've seen, because predominantly most people are walking maybe one person into an auditorium with their family, or they're simply driving by being given their diploma. I think you've really thought outside the box. So thank you, Hayden, your group, and Mr. Will and his staff. As we go on through here, I'd like to just share some important dates. This is the week of May 18th to the 22nd. This is final exam week across the district. So I know at the high school, they're doing final exams this week. Many of our elementaries, these are makeup weeks. So teachers are really encouraging students to kind of get those assignments turned in that maybe they weren't able to turn in at regular intervals or regular time. So that makes this week really a pretty nice week to get things kind of wrapped up. I got to tell you, when you see these next two items, I've gotten a sneak preview at these. Again, kudos to the high school staff, number of teachers who have done an amazing job with this. The Academic Awards virtual program and the Senior Awards virtual program, I just don't know if you're going to see a whole lot better out there. And I won't tip the scales too much on this, but it may be more personable than in some ways even being there, because they went out and got the academic awards and had those people who normally would present those awards, got them on video presenting those awards. So I think I think you're going to really like that. It's about as close as you can get to actually being there. And again, the motorcade celebration was moved to tomorrow at 4 p.m. Hopefully the weather will accommodate us there. Crossing our fingers, Saturday still looks pretty good for graduation. So we do have some other information I thought was important to share with you. Senior drive-by celebrations, believe it or not, our elementaries take a great deal of pride in their graduates who used to go to their elementaries. And so every one of them has developed some sort of a drive-by celebration where they can really kind of clap or wave out their seniors. It seems like they've been gone probably for, in some cases, most cases 7 years, but these folks are still very personal to our teachers at the elementary level. So I listed some times there. Most of it, as you can see, is all on Friday, May 22nd, where they'll do those drive-by celebrations. We sometimes forget about those other little moments, those skipping in times. 8th graders to become freshmen. I don't know, Hayden, if you can remember thinking, I'm going to the high school. That's kind of a big step. And so they even have a drive-by celebration where the middle school staff is going to be kind of lined up, of course, spaced accordingly, but kind of waving on their 8th graders on the high school as well. So some neat things there. I'm not going to go through and read all of this necessarily, but we will post this on the website. We've got some drive-by celebrations going on for our 5th graders as well, some special things, and some opportunities to pick up grade cards, turn in Chromebooks. All those times are kind of listed there at various times. Again, most of those are going to be Tuesday, May 26th, and Wednesday, May 27th, our last 2 days of school. Wanted to give you some overview of the thought exchange. We did a thought exchange at about week 4 of the online remote learning, right at the end of our spring break. And so we had our growing pains through the first 3 weeks of the online remote learning. And quite frankly, we wanted to hear from our parents and our students and our staff, things that, what was working well and what we could improve upon. And we had over 1,005 participants in this thought exchange. They generated 897 thoughts and had ratings of over 28,000 stars. Where was this kind of a group in? 41% of the respondents associated themselves a little bit more with the high school setting. 23% were middle school, and you can kind of see on the right-hand side, you know, you're kind of in the 10% or just below with most of our elementary schools. So 1,005 participants is really a nice response and a lot of information to go through. I did some demographic pieces just to take a look. We had 647 parents respond to the thought exchange, by far our biggest group. So when we put this out there, parents were more than eager to go in and share their thoughts. We had 218 students who participated, really mostly high school students, and we had 140 staff participated. So when I share with you some of the top 10 results, you can break it out by parents, by students, by staff, or you can combine the whole group together. I will say before I jump into the next slide, which I think is going to be some of the results, the one thing I've always been really careful about in these exchanges is I do get a lot of thoughts that are really, really wonderful about specific teachers. Mrs. So-and-so, Mr. This, they are the greatest, they do this. And I try to pass those along to the teachers, but I don't generally include those in the exchange. Just as I wouldn't include in an exchange somebody that might have unkind things to say about a specific individual. So I try to be really fair to that all the way across the board. But there were many, 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 many more really positive things that were said about very specific folks, and I think it's important to mention. So here were the top 10 thoughts of the 1,000 or the 800 and some that were in there. You can see there, they're rated by stars at the top, so people look at them. We had 845 thoughts. 2 of the first 3 all relate to food service. Big shout out to the food service crew, to the district's kind of step up to help parents with meals. I know we shared in several updates with our community and with you. We were serving anywhere from 800 meals on a daily basis to almost 1,000 meals, you know, on specific days. So shout out to food service, food, thank you. We appreciate all the teachers and other staff are doing to keep our kids learning as much as possible. Given short amount of time, the administration and teachers had to prepare. I think they're doing an amazing job. And so people would go in and rate these thoughts. The second 10 is I appreciate the teachers, supportive staff, teachers have gone above and beyond, communication. So that was the top 10. Obviously, all of those are very, very positive. We do get some constructive advice, which we value greatly. These just happen to be the top 10, and appreciation was a big word that we heard. This is kind of a word cloud. If you're a teacher, you understand what this is, but the bigger the word, the more that word was used in the thoughts that were shared. So the 845 thoughts, support was used more than any other. The word done, stress, job, important, assignments, all of those things were things that were grouped in areas of themes. So to give you an idea of this, that support, if I would go backwards, and we'll open up this thought exchange for people to really dig in and look at, but if I would hover over support, as I'm doing right now, and click, it would open up all the thoughts that had the word support in it. If I did the same with done, it would hover over and open up all those thoughts. I went ahead and opened up the top 3 in a couple categories. Under support, you'll see the word supportive staff, 4.5. Teachers are doing amazing. I appreciate all the teachers are doing to support both my son and I through this process. We so appreciate the teachers. They are making improvements each week, ready, available to support student success. In the area of done, I thought that was an interesting word that popped up. Teachers have done a great job of adapting. Here was one, Friday, a day to get work from the week done. Nothing should be assigned on Fridays. So this was a suggestion, but the word done was in there. Some of the teachers need to even out the workload. Some days I'm done a half an hour, and other days it's 3 hours. So all fair kinds of thoughts. And again, I just kind of took these main key words and kind of shared those across. Communication between staff and administrators, consistent communication. I feel that's something but all needs to get better at, which is communication. Same with stress. You know, we wondered about our kids with stress. And interestingly enough, that came out in the thought exchange, and we can certainly share some of those things. And again, these are kind of the top 3 thoughts in those categories. I did find it interesting. We had so many more parents involved. We had about 200 and some students, but here are the students' top 10 thoughts, a little different than maybe the overall top thoughts. Amount of work. Some classes need to tone down on the work because other people have other classes too. Okay. I believe that Friday should be a catch-up day. I'm a student at MVHS, and this online learning can be a struggle because I have parents who work 8+ hours a day. When am I to get on the computer? Teachers to need to have an assigned schedule to upload assignments. Again, Friday to get work done. The final 6 or 5 in this top 10 of students, even out student workload. There's too much stress. Friday should be a work day. The amount of work should be reduced. So just gives you a real different flavor of the different audiences when we do a thought exchange. So I thought that was important to kind of share. If I just had to share a couple key takeaways beyond the ones that were shared there, as you go down and look through all 800 some comments, in-person, live, or recorded lessons are preferred. I mean, let's be honest, the preferred method is a face-to-face teacher. That will always be our preferred method, not only by the students, but by the teachers. And I see Darcy shaking her head. Absolutely. We want the students in our classroom. But if we can't have that, the more in-person, live, or recorded lessons, it's not just give me the work, it's connect with your students. And that can be through Zoom, Google Meets, Class Dojo, etc. A consistent communication plan was something that came out strong and clear from administration to parents, teachers to students, and teachers to parents. What method are we using? Another one that came out, a takeaway, was our learning management system. We currently have a couple that we use just out of what we have available to us: Schoology, Google Classroom, Moodle, etc. Some of the comments were we have maybe too many of these platforms. Let's make sure that my student is using one platform that is robust and have all teachers in a given building do it. We also heard too many apps and programs. Let me just say that during this time of online remote learning, we were inundated. Teachers were inundated with all kinds of programs and apps, and try this and try that. Some really good stuff, but we got to a point to where we had too much stuff. Too many logins and usernames and passwords. And so finding that one place to house all this information is a key takeaway. Chromebooks were essential, and there was great appreciation in the thought exchange for that. We were able to go down to grade 2 through grade 12 with Chromebooks. If we didn't have the infrastructure and, quite frankly, the board's foresight to really invest in Chromebooks several years ago, it would have been a different start. I talked to many superintendents who unfortunately didn't have any technology really to share, and they were truly using Blizzard bags, and it was a challenge to keep those kids motivated. Internet access can be a challenge, all right? Even though we got a high propensity of students who said they had internet access, it can be spotty. You can live out in the country. Your videos can be scattered. The other thing we never really thought about is when we were put on a stay-at-home order, parents were as well. Well, parents were asked to work from home. So I've got parents working from home. They need the internet so that they can work from home. When are the kids going to get on? And so we need to think about those things as we may have to find ourselves utilizing this a little bit more moving forward. Finally, the last two, consistent and structured daily schedules were important. Almost having some kind of a structure or daily schedule really helps with students and staying engaged. While instruction improved over time, and it did, I'm here to tell you, we had some teachers doing some amazing things. Where we started in March 16th to where we're at today, I think is night and day for a lot of teachers. And I think students will even say, wow, we have really improved along the way. Again, not the most ideal, but we've really done a nice job. But we need to realize that we need to continue to provide professional development to our teachers and provide some more resources if this is going to continue. cameras and the ability to put documents out in front of students. So those are just some key takeaways I took from the thought exchange. We'll try to produce that live so you can go through the website and really dig in. The thought exchange is really a valuable tool to allow people to express their thoughts and opinions, and we appreciate it. Last two things I had, the food service summer program. Here's our plan moving forward, and this is really a community piece here. We're going to continue our food service program through Wednesday, May 27th. That's our last student day. We're going to continue to work from those 9 locations. And then we'll move into our summer food service program, and that's going to start the following Monday, June 1st. We're still trying to iron out the locations. We don't believe we can continue to do all 9 locations. What we're doing is we're taking a look at the locations that had the highest numbers, and we really want to try to touch all 4 corners of the district, north, south, east, and west. And so we're working with Mark to try to make sure that we can do that in such a way that we can try to accommodate those needs for our students moving forward. The time will remain the same, 11 to 12, and breakfast and lunch will continue to be provided. And finally, here's the last piece of update. And this is a $1 million question. I wish I had the $1 million answer at the moment, but what will school look like next year? Tell you what, there's a lot of rumors out there floating around. Really, the reality is we just don't know. Until we get some more definitive guidance, it makes it difficult for us to plan. We have done some preliminary planning. We read the tea leaves like everybody else, so we kind of are getting a sense. And what we're hearing is that by the end of the May, we'll have more definitive guidance on how we can open next fall, and really what kind of local choice we'll have. We're hoping that they provide us parameters, and that we as a local district can work with inside those parameters to do what we feel is best for our district and our situation. So once we get that guidance, we've developed a reopening committee. We'll have a committee that includes teachers, parents, students, administrators, and looking at how we can reopen in the right way, because there's going to be ramifications that probably scan across the board. In reality, we hope we can just open as normal. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to completely do that right away. So we'll plan for what comes, and we'll just do the best we can with the information we've got. And so that really kind of concludes my update. Does anybody have any questions relative to that?
Yes, I have a question, couple questions concerning commencement. First of all, will there be other security there? Will there be security there? And what PPE will the people who are attending, specifically our staff, have to wear?
That's a good question. And I know Scott has worked closely with law enforcement, so they'll be there to support us. We don't anticipate any problems. We have folks who are going to be respectful of a celebratory time, and we're providing ways for other folks to see this, to hear this. So we don't anticipate, but we will have law enforcement there. Talking very directly with Julie Miller, the Knox County Health Director. Our students, as long as they stay 6 feet apart, will not have to wear masks as they walk up to get their diploma. And everybody else should be remaining in their cars during the entire ceremony. They certainly wouldn't have to wear masks inside their cars. Those who are up on stage, we'll get that final guidance, although there won't be very many on stage. And so we think that those two things, hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other thoughts with the kind of that end of the year update, the thought exchange, or any information, or maybe even question for Scott?
Well, I'd just like to thank Scott and his other administrative team members for the wonderful job they've done. I know OSBA has shared a lot of different scenarios, and I think this is one of the best that I've seen. So I'm very proud of what we're doing. And it's not perfect, but I think it's the best that we can accomplish under the circumstances. So thanks for all that. And with regard to the thought exchange, it reminds me of how good you've been, Mr. Cedar, in seeking community input, and to increase that communication has just been invaluable. So I appreciate that. Thank you for engaging our community like this, and always wanting to know and helping us to understand what their views really are. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, I guess if it's okay, well, the second part of my items for information, I won't spend any time reading these, but they are some board policies. This is the first reading for these policies. You can go to the summary overview when you have some time, read through those. As always, Terry does a great job of highlighting the changes in there. As you click on these links, you might have to hit sign in over on the right-hand side, as the PDFs seem to want to make sure that you're signed in correctly. So if that's an issue for you, that might be something you'll need to try. And then finally, under recommended items for board preview, I have 3 for you tonight. The first 2 resolutions are memorandums of understanding that we work closely with MVEA on. The first 2 have to do with supplemental contracts. We talked at our last board meeting, realizing that spring supplementals, we really just started into that we weren't really able to complete those supplementals. We did come to an agreement that 66% was the right number for us to use. We pay in 3 installments, and we needed to formalize that in an MOU. The first MOU is to formalize that supplemental 66% with non-licensed staff. In other words, non-MVEA members. And then the second memorandum is with MVEA members, the exact same amount, but I had to do it twice because of a collective bargaining agreement. And then the third memorandum there is a memorandum of understanding for the evaluation process. Again, Darcy and her executive team, we work closely together to develop that memorandum of understanding, just as it relates to the evaluation process and all when it fell and finalizing evaluation. So I put those 3 memorandums up for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Cedar. Board members, I would entertain a motion then to approve those 3 items as read.
So moved, Mary Regola-Dye.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Is there a second?
I'll second. Tim Workman.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Oh, Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Thank you. Were there any questions?
No, I just want to say thank you to MVEA for your working with the board on these situations. Uncharted times, and these are things that we do not like to do, but unfortunately, just grateful that they are willing to work with us on these situations.
Thank you. Good point. Any other comments or questions? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you very much. For this evening, I'm just going to comment on 3 of the articles. The first one is 7 steps for how to help kids relax as the pandemic crisis upends daily life. And their 7 suggestions are, and I think this was mentioned earlier, establish a solid routine and include some exercise, and eating together as a family they felt was very important for as many meals as possible. Second, to restrict news consumption and to ward off misinformation. Third was to monitor and minimize your own anxiety. You know, we know our children pick up from us what we're feeling, so we need to be aware of that. Fourth, sorry, I can't read my writing.
Looks like take actions to protect everyone.
Right,
from the
take
coronavirus.
actions to protect everyone from the virus and stay active and busy. And then number 5 is to choose high quality educational media and common sense media ratings are given. So there's some apps from PBS Kids, for example, that are supposed to be very good, but to be in charge of helping your kids monitor those. And then use media with your children. In other words, don't just sit them in front of the TV, but when you're cooking or doing something that you could involve them, allow them to participate and talk about what's on television or their iPad or computer or whatever. So joint media and engagement, they said, was really good with parents commenting on it. Then 7th is to find ways to create rather than to consume. And that kids might have fun filming themselves was kind of an interesting thing. And acting out a play or making an instructional video for their grandparents. So I thought those were great ideas. And then the second, if you'll skip down to how can school leaders support teachers? Just the main thought there was giving teachers the freedom to use digital platforms for which they're comfortable, and celebrating small wins are among the recommendations. So empower educators, offer encouragement, and then give them grace. And hopefully they will give their students grace as well. And then the third was the last, successful instruction in a digital environment. And they point out that the touchstones are important, that to connect with and engage students with interaction is everything. That's the most important, to connect with the students and engage them. In order to do that, they said some ideas are to send individual personal emails to students, create a shared document, and they suggested 2 columns. In one column, you could have the questions, and the second column, right alongside it, you could list the answer, and that could be a running document that's always online, so students could refer back to the questions and answers. The third idea was to post a thought-provoking, content-related, open-ended, controversial question that students can respond to. And fourth was create a short video and to teach a concept or a skill. The fifth was to set up a conference call. And then the 6th was to challenge students to work collaboratively. So I know students are missing their friends, so to set up some kind of a collaborative event for students to work together sounded like a great idea. So, and the research article in the back you may want to read. It's kind of depressing, so I'm not going to take time to go over that, but it mainly talks about you know, what we're losing and how it's going to be hard for kids to make up this learning. And they give some examples of New Orleans and the hurricane and what happened when they went to different schools and missed out on some schooling, etc. So you might want to look at that, but we're going to be positive tonight, so I'm not going to talk about that.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
I can tell you that last article you read, my granddaughter, again, 2nd grade here in the district, the best part of her day was when she logged in, met with her teacher and a group of other students. I mean, that level of connectivity is certainly something we need to continue to strive for, because I think that connection is pretty powerful if we have to live in this world. Yeah, even if it's part-time, I think it's still pretty important. So.
Well, and I've heard the same thing from my grandchildren. Their Zoom meetings with their classes have been the highlight of their day. So they've really enjoyed that, connecting with the teacher and also connecting with their fellow students. So
Good. Well, item B is recommended items for board approval. In this section, I have one item to approve, and it's an important one. It's one we've been working on now for almost a year and a half. Real credit to Eric and Kathy for leading this part. We've been piloting some programs in math at all grade levels, and Eureka Math has one that is just really kind of risen to the top at the elementary levels, grades K through 5. And so we're going to be adopting Eureka Math from Great Minds as our elementary math curriculum moving forward. I put a link there if you want to see some more information about it. It just, when you hear young children say, you know what, I really enjoy math now. Math is my funnest subject. Boy, that wouldn't have been something maybe that I might have said back when I was in school, but it's just a little bit of a different way to engage students. We feel like it's going to have an upward trajectory for students. And as we get into middle school and high school, they'll be even better prepared than they are now. So we're going to look to do Eureka Math this month. I know the high school and the middle school are working on some blended approaches at their levels as well. And so we'll bring those to you at a later date.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion then to approve the curriculum item for Eureka Math as read.
So moved, Mayor Regola-Dye.
Thank you, Mr. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Jody.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzman. And do I have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Will the transition, you think, from what our teachers have been doing at elementary level for the last few years, will the transition into Eureka be fairly easy for the teachers?
You know, I think we're going to have to provide a good bit of professional development to help them transition. It really engages the teacher, and it's not a cookie cutter approach where you just, you know, you look at and you have lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4. So I think there is going to be some onboarding that's going to be professional development that's going to be much needed. I think the student transition, at least at the elementary levels that we've seen so far, has been pretty good. I will say that the transition from middle school to high school, that's probably one of the reasons why we're not moving forward with Eureka at those levels, because it's a much higher level of understanding of math. And so you got to almost have the foundation and get stronger and stronger in your skills. If we just dropped our middle schoolers or high schools into Eureka now, there might be more gaps than we really want. And so we're being very strategic in trying to start this pretty robust program here at the younger levels and transition them up to the upper levels as we go. So there will be some professional development needed. We're going to get in the hands of all of our elementary teachers on our last teacher workday here in May, the teachers edition, as well as begin professional development right at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes,
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Fiscal Services, Mr. Hankins.
Sure. This is just a typical monthly report. Very boilerplate, not much in terms of revenue coming in. This is not where I want to spend the bulk of my time, but if Mr. Sheeter, if you would take it to page 4, I will point out one thing there. I'm sorry, page 5, I apologize. If you'll look back at the prior month's board meetings and look at the total portfolio on this, you can see that even in the midst of a pandemic, we continue to generate some interest. So several $1,000s worth just from March to April. So that's good news. And we're grateful for our partners there that are helping us use our finances to the fullest so we can provide the best education for our students. But if there's no questions regarding the report, I will move on to the forecast.
Move on.
If you don't mind closing out of there. Thank you, sir. Scroll down to page 3, probably, kind of the typical forecast you're used to looking at. Obviously, I've only been on the job for a couple months, but this was an extremely difficult forecast to develop. Every 2 years, I would say treasurers at this time of year, they turn in a forecast for the month of May as required by revised code. And it is, you know, it involves some guesswork because you don't know what the biennial budget's going to look like. You obviously, you know, are gleaning information as best you can. This time, when you're in the midst of a biennial budget, would typically be somewhat straightforward. for a treasurer. You know, in theory, what the next year's funding is going to look like. So you can write what you feel like is a pretty accurate forecast, especially in regards to your revenue. But obviously we've had some changes. So we didn't anticipate, when we started this fiscal year, $760,000 being removed from our budget as a result of the pandemic. And to be quite honest, we have no idea what next year is going to look like in terms of what the state will need to do to balance their budget. The company we work with, that I work with closely to develop these, works with over 140 districts. So I feel like we're in good company with the way we're forecasting for the upcoming years. But again, we have no idea. We've heard everything from forecast exactly the same as you lost this year to forecast a 20% reduction. And I just feel like with that in mind, I wanted to be optimistic. I'm usually pretty conservative in my financial estimates, but this is an optimistic forecast. I got to be honest. I'm forecasting that we will lose the same amount of money through the state budget next year that we lost this year. Later in this forecast, I believe it's page 23, you will see an example of if that were to be doubled. So instead of 760, approximately 1.5 million, if that were to be removed from our budget, you'll see what that looks like. And if it goes beyond that, to be honest, I'm just going to be redoing this, and I will bring a forecast to you earlier than the normal projected twice a year. So if in July we get a bunch of information that really allows us to have more clarity, then I will refile this forecast. Obviously, I will bring it to the board for approval first, and I'll refile it through ODE. So this is the best estimate we could make in these uncertain times. So I will certainly take any questions that you have at this point.
Should we
Here-
put a motion on the floor, or do you want to finish memorial books first?
Entirely up to you.
Maybe you should go ahead with the memorial books, and then we'll have a motion, and then people can ask questions.
Mr. Cedar, if you'd move back to your agenda. Thank you, sir. We do have a book in memory of Ted Robinson, the father of Kim Bradley, a library aide at Twin Oak. The book Remember Balloons was donated to the Twin Oak Library in memory of Mr. Robertson.
Okay, thank you. Board members, I would entertain a motion then to approve these fiscal services items as read.
So moved. It's Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And do I have a second?
Second, Mayor
Okay.
Regola-Dye.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. And are there any questions regarding the financial report, the 5-year forecast, or the 5-year forecast?
I think as I take a look at this with Gary, we're certainly, we want to be optimistic, but we need to be proactive at the same time. And so we were anticipating that we would not deficit spend this year. And so for those lay folks out there who aren't quite sure about all this school budget stuff, we have income that comes in, revenues, and then we have expenses that go out. And since 2012 or 13, when we passed that levy, we've been balancing our budget every year. Districts are required to have a savings. And so when you spend more than you bring in, and inevitably that happens, then you dip into your savings. And we didn't think we'd have to dip into our savings until next year. We generally carry about a $5 million savings, but it can go pretty quickly. I had some folks share with me they thought we had a much bigger savings account. Well, when we had all the private money that was brought in and that was put in the general foundation, in our general fund, it certainly made our carryover look much greater. But that was earmarked money very specifically for the private project, which is the field house, again, which is all privately funded. So we've got this savings account. Now we're beginning to dip into that savings a little bit because our income and revenues and expenses are starting to cross lines a little bit. when you get cut $750,000, that happens. And you'll notice right here in this, our revenues are 40,400. Our expenses are 40,759. Take out $750,000 and you'll find that we're deficit spending and needing to dip into that.
Mr. Cedar, if you
along.
can scroll
Go ahead.
down just a little.
Okay,
I apologize.
no worries.
You'll see that number in 6.01. We project that we'll deficit spend by over $500,000 this year, which means we were actually on course to be in pretty good shape prior to that reduction and still be in the black in terms of this specific year. But with the reduction, we will deficit spend. As Mr. Cedar said, we will be cutting into our savings and dipping just under $5 million. I know this is confusing. I appreciate Mr. Cedar trying to clear it up. You might look at our bank statement and see, you know, more than obviously $4.9 million. But again, these are general funds. So we are a self-insured district. So we have money set aside specifically for insurance that is in our bank account, and it may make our bank account look inflated, but it is specifically earmarked and has to be spent for insurance. So in terms of general operating funds, and again, I appreciate Mr. Cedar pointing that out, this is where we are, and we have to make decisions accordingly. I also appreciate some of the things he's helped me to do in terms of, we took building budget money. I know Mr. Will could attest to this. He might want to strangle me. That was earmarked for this year off the table, and we brought it back into the general fund. We've already let principals know that next year building budgets are going to be reduced. We want to do everything in our power to ensure that we're being fiscally responsible and hopefully keeping the district in a good place. You know, as I've spoken to some of my peers, although this isn't ideal, we are in far better shape than others, but we've got to be very careful, because in a district where we have as many employees as we have and payrolls as we have every 2 weeks, $5 million can go very quickly.
Thank you for that explanation. If there are no other questions, then you may call the roll.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And legislative liaison report, Ms. Regola-Dye.
Thank you. In House activity, House Bill 111 requires public and private schools to transmit transferred students' records within 5 school days. In the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee, they accepted a substitute version of HB 322. And this revises the Ohio Teacher Residency Program. The latest version removes the state superintendent and chancellor from establishing the Ohio Teacher Residency Program, and it requires each local school district to develop this new teacher partnership program for the incoming teachers. HB 409 modifies the student, there, I can't read my own writing.
Attendance.
Modifies the student's attendance at certain e-schools. And the student is considered in attendance when the student participates in at least 90% of the instructional activities, or the student is on pace for any course in which the student is enrolled. HB 83 in the Criminal Justice Committee allows images captured on a school bus camera to be used as corroborating evidence for failure to stop. HB 208 increases the penalty for an assault if the victim is a sports official. HB 255 and 541 are both concerned with property tax exemptions and adjustments. HB 609 is concerned with the temporary
Amnesty program.
Yes, amnesty. Thank you for delinquent taxes and fees. And then finally, this one I think is fairly important. It's not a House bill, but the State Board of Education passed a resolution urging the General Assembly to waive the requirement that the state board increase the promotion score for third grade English language arts for the 2020 and 2021 school year. I was not aware that they were maybe thinking about increasing the score. Was anybody else aware of that?
I was aware they were talking about it. Obviously, with this kind of our second graders now who have, gone through this basically last 9 weeks, they're going to start a little bit behind. And so next year, it's going to be a real challenge if they raise that score for the third grade guarantees. So we certainly have to set our targets high.
Yes, and I will eventually be in contact with our representatives about not doing that.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have
And
one item for board approval in this section. It's an agency coordination agreement with the station break. It's an agreement we fall into every year with the station break to use the district facilities to prepare meals in the event of a catastrophe. So that item for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Cedar. I would entertain a motion to approve that item.
So moved, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Jody.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzman. And were there any questions? Hey, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman. Mrs. Getzman?
She gave you the thumbs up.
Okay, sorry, I can't.
There we go. The wrong button, yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes,
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And now we are to student services, and we have some items recommended for board approval.
Yes, on the agenda, I have an agreement with Licking Rehab, or we call them Rehab Associates. This is to provide occupational and physical therapy to students with disabilities. You'll notice this is a 3-year contract, and it is an increase of $1.10 per hour. But that does lock us into that price for 3 years. So I think they've been a good company for us to work with. They're in Newark. And so we very much want to continue working with them. And then it's my pleasure to present to you the graduating class of 2020.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion then to approve these 2 items.
So move, Steve Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And do I have a second?
second, Mayor Regola Dye.
Thank you, Ms. Regola Dye. And were there any questions?
No.
Okay, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes,
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
With pride, I abstain.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And personnel.
All right. By the way, we have 283 graduates this year. So it's a good number. Under personnel and certificated licensed staff, no information at this time. Number of items for board approval tonight. Again, with bittersweetness on this certificated side, the retirements of Sue Miller, principal at Twin Oak, Ray Ellen Nixon, first grade teacher at Pleasant Street Elementary. And we have the resignation in a couple areas, Wynn Bandy, Aaron Bradley, and Kelly Malik. So those items for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cedar. And board members, I'd entertain a motion to approve those 2 items as read.
so moved, Mayor Regola Dye.
Thank you, Ms. Regola Dye. And do I have a second?
I'll second, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes,
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman, I gotta see your face. There we go.
There we go.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, classified staff.
Under classified staff, we have no items for information. 3 items for board approval tonight. First is the retirement of Sherry Patterson from the secretary of the middle school. We also have some substitute employment in several areas of food service and food service employees. So those items for your approval.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion then to approve those 3 items.
So moved, Mayor Regola-Dye.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Jody.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzman. Are there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. And I assume there is no need for executive session this evening?
There is no need for an executive session unless you all have a need for that. If not, we will have a work session coming up sometime here in the next month. Facilities, financial discussions, I think will be real important. We'll see where we're at in June, whether we can all get back together personally to have a board meeting or whether we step into our 3rd virtual board meeting.
All right. And thanks to Mr. Fry and you for making this work. I know that sometimes it's a challenge, so thank you for the extra time that you've spent making sure that this went smoothly. And if no one else has anything, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mayor Regola-Dye. Stay well.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And we are officially adjourned then. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you all for attending. Be safe.
Thank you.
See you at
Yes.
graduation.
Yes.
All righty. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.